Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and today we're going to have a look at the National Hurricane Centre and its forecast for the Atlantic Ocean. We have 4 current tropical cyclones, 2 tropical storms and 2 hurricanes, and then we have 3 other areas of disturbances, with 1 most likely to become a tropical storm in the near future and 2 got quite a low chance. We'll be focusing on Hurricane Sally, as that's going to be impacting parts of Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida in the near future, within the next day or two. But we'll have an overlook with all the current systems and disturbances briefly at the start. So if we look at this disturbance 1, a low 10 to 20% chance. And if we have a look at the 5-day graphical forecast, you can see where they're moving. So you can see this sort of just milling around in the Gulf of Mexico, so it doesn't look like anything will come as much of it. I don't really think anything's going to come of it, but still something to keep an eye on for general shower thunderstorm activity. We have we'll have a look at this disturbance 3 first. It's got a 20% chance of cyclone formation within the next 5 days, and it's moving south into warmer oceans, but it's near like sort of Spain, Iberia. Very interesting to see what happens with that. If it does actually get to tropical storm strength or tropical depression strength, would it be named in the Atlantic forecast? And if it did impact Spain, for example, would it be a tropical storm, hurricane, whatever? As technically that only normally applies for things hitting America and the Caribbean. So it's, I don't know what we'll have to see with that. It's interesting to see if that system develops. At the moment it doesn't look like it's going to develop, but it's something to keep an eye on. And then there's quite a major tropical wave just coming off Africa now, got quite a high chance, and we'll see whether that develops into another tropical storm. Conditions are quite conducive for further developments. So it's very likely to turn it into a tropical storm and probably a hurricane if it gets going. We'll just have to see what track it takes. As we'll have a look at Teddy in the moment, and even though Teddy looks poised for the Caribbean, it actually is veering further north. So all these out the Atlantic, all these systems out the Atlantic are not actually looking like they're going to be affecting major coastlines as tropical systems. But we'll first have a look at Tropical Storm Vicky, which is something that's going to disintegrate really. It's just a small system that's developed, and that will be disintegrating very soon to a post-tropical depression, and just being remnants and will be swept up by other tropical systems as well. Hurricane Paulette has travelled through Bermuda as a Cat 1, Cat 2 hurricane. It was forecast to potentially become a major hurricane, but that looks like it has disappeared now as it's just creeping on Cat 3, so it's going to maintain sort of Cat 1, Cat 2 strength, going sort of northeast, remaining quite a significant hurricane, or Cat 1, Cat 2 for the next couple of days before disintegrating to sort of tropical storm strength and becoming post-tropical, but still quite a potent area of low pressure with tropical storm winds, so 40, 50, 60 mile an hour winds. And then it takes sort of a right angled turn to veer south, so really interesting to see what happens with that. Where it goes beyond this initial cone, but it doesn't look like it's going to be affecting any major land for the near future. So it's still something to keep an eye on, and it's interesting to keep an eye on it, but nothing really for anyone to be particularly worried about. If you have a look at Tropical Storm Teddy, and this is what I was saying earlier about that area disturbance just south and eastwards, this looks poised to go into the Caribbean and towards America, but it's veering more north westwards, and it's forecast to become a major hurricane by Thursday, so Cat 3, and maybe even getting higher than that, considering how long it's maintaining major strength on this current forecast. To the end of the week, it's maintaining major strength on this, heading towards Bermuda. But again, stuff can change, so it could more veer further westwards, further eastwards, but at the moment, any veering of this trajectory doesn't look like it's going to impact any land. Just interesting to see whether it gets caught up in the jet stream and moves further north and east, or whether it does start to edge towards America or towards Bermuda. That's something we need to keep an eye on. And again, it could quite a big turn, and it could head towards the Caribbean. So something to keep a big eye on. It's going to be such a big system as a major hurricane. It could be affecting how other things develop and how upper level winds develop, and it could be affecting, even this might not affect land, it might impact how other systems develop and how they move towards land. But something, again, interesting to keep an eye on. And it's going to be turning into a major hurricane, Cat 3 and above, but not really impacting any land, which is pretty fortunate. But last we have Hurricane Sally, which is only a Cat 1, potentially a Cat 2 hurricane. Some models a few days ago thought maybe Cat 3, Cat 4 getting to major, but it's just looking like just a standard sort of Cat 1 hurricane at the moment. And we'll have a look at its current position. It's just south of the Alabama, sort of Florida, Mississippi, Louisiana coastline, and it's moving north very slowly. So its biggest thing with this is going to be its rainfall, really. Wind speed probabilities, if you have a look at that. Hurricane force winds, quite a small area, because it's really going to be a rainfall event, this, with its speed. Wind history, you can see, if the wind history loads, doesn't look like it's loading. We'll go to US rainfall potential. So if we have a look at US rainfall potential, 15 to 20 inches of rain for a quite wide area, and then 6 to 10 inches around that as well. And again, these are just from the initial hurricane. There could be areas higher and lower than this. Even in that 20-inch spot, you can see 30 inches or you could see 10 inches, because again, it depends on what sort of band you reach, the intensity when it reaches you, and how significantly the system dies off as it reaches land. It does look like it will maintain pretty decent strength. It moves northeastwards, still dumping 4 to 6 inches, but we could be seeing up to half a metre of rainfall with this, and then along with its storm surge potential, which we'll have a look at in a minute, and flash flood potential, we could see very significant floods from this, with each rainfall reaching half a metre. So, yeah, if we have a look at flash flooding, you've got a very high chance of flash flooding just towards the coastal areas, and then quite a large area of moderate, and then a large area of slight again, and most of the eastern and southeastern part of the USA. And we've got a marginal chance of flash flooding from those sort of outer bands of thunderstorms. If you have a look at the peak surge now, it's not as high as it was forecast yesterday, potentially 7 to 11 feet, but that's probably because it was forecast to become maybe Cat 2, Cat 3. But a 4 to 7 foot surge, along with half a metre, so 3 feet of water falling from the sky, could still create big concerns for these coastal areas, and even further inland as well. Low-lying areas with poor drainage, around lakes, rivers, streams, seeing some big flooding around with this. Still, there is some significant impacts from the wind as well, but it's just more of a rainfall event. This. I'll be back in a second, and we'll have a look at the weatherchannel.com to see what the sort of infrared cloud images and current rainfall is like. And we are back on the weatherchannel.com having a look at Hurricane Sally, and you can see very big bands of rain, clear rotation. There's not really a clear eye at the moment. See this sort of spot here, we'll have a look on the infrared in a minute, but that's actually a booming thunderstorm, and showing it's still highly convective. That's actually the highest cloud tops in the storm. But you can see big outer rain bands that's still affecting Orlando and parts of Florida, and then it's heading further north, this sort of direction in here, sort of mobile, up towards sort of these rivers inland. So it's a very large system. You can see it's sort of northern and eastern based for a lot of its rain bands, but it's still got a decent wraparound. But we'll have a look at the water vapour. You can see that's where the big convection is in the middle, but again, a lot of water vapour on the outside, showing these sort of thunderstorm bands. And if we have a look at the infrared, you can see clearly in the centre of the storm, you see that big convection. That's that big pool of air of convection. Normally, if this was higher category hurricane, you'd see the eye starting to appear in the centre here, and these white colours wrapping around the eye. But at the moment, there's just general rotation, not as such an eye, as it's not got the, as high as intensity as we could have seen. And if you go up to Hurricane Paulette at the moment is just disintegrating in strength. As you can see, not as much convection in those sort of white colours. You can see sort of the eye remnants there, which are starting to disintegrate and cave in. But you can see there's still a very active system, as these white colours are showing. There's still a lot of convection going on in the centre, so it's still strengthening, or at least maintaining its strength over the ocean. You can see pushing these bands of rain and big thunderstorms in. If we have a look at the current radar, you can see that's the main storm there, sort of the centre of the eye wall, or at least you can call it an eye wall really, as it will be the most intense part, but it's not technically an eye wall, as it's not really an eye with this storm at the moment, or a distinct eye from satellite. There probably is an area of lower intensity in the middle, but it's not well defined. But you can see big outer bands, and that's why we're going to see this widespread heavy rainfall and big rain totals, just because of these sort of big convection lines running around the storm. Before the storm even reaches land, remember it's off coast here, and some of these areas are still already seen an inch or a couple inches of rainfall before the main storm even arrives. You can see big rain bands circulating around it as it approaches land. If we have a look at the wind speed, you can see the wind speed is starting to pick up on the coast. Expect that to get up to maybe 100, 130 kilometers per hour, so getting up into these sort of purple zones on the coast, but it should slowly disintegrate over the next couple of days down. Tropical storm status down to depression probably by this weekend for strength of the winds. If we have a look at precipitation in the last 24 hours, this sort of radar estimates, so not actual weather stations, but this is what's estimated from the radar. You can see already areas seeing hundreds or above 100 millimeters, 160, 180, 200 millimeters. That's getting up to 20 centimeters of rain, and the system is still offshore. This is just the outer bands with the big thunderstorms. You can see the circular sort of big area of outbands. You see the centre here is quite close to New Orleans, as close to New Orleans as it is to the sort of the Panama City down here, and these purple areas of rainfall, but it's because it's sort of a northern eastern based storm with this big convection and it's outer bands, so they're going to see more of the rainfall, and you'll see that spread probably further west, and these areas really to tot up over the next day or two, getting probably into the whites up here, getting beyond that purple zone, getting 200, 300, 400 millimeters, potentially even up to half a metre rainfall, and by the end of this system. Anyway, it's still a very significant event in a very active hurricane season. It just shows you what even a Cat 1, Cat 2 hurricane can bring with in terms of rainfall. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another update on the hurricane season or any other weather events soon.